Hi guys, welcome back to NASA's thread. Today on the channel, we'll be learning how to make one shoulder shape dress. Right. So I have my sewing tools with me. I have my fabric. I have 2 yards of this fabric. All right. So the fabric I have with me is a poly fabric. Okay, but this is more of a mercury type of fabric because the front part of this fabric is shiny and then the inside part is dull. All right. So the first thing we'll do, okay, is to fold into four. So I was just checking this out because there's a part of this fabric that stretches and I didn't want to use the stretchy part of this fabric. So I went ahead to fold this into four. Like I said, we're making a one shoulder shift dress, okay, one shoulder boobu dress, one shoulder kaftan dress, okay. That's just what I'm trying to make, okay. To do this, I'll just fold this into four so we can start cutting. All right. So I folded it into four and I went ahead to I measured it up to ensure I had enough for what I needed. Okay. I noticed that it wasn't enough after I measured it. So I just made little adjustment, adjusted this down and then folded this back. Okay. So the idea is just to fold this into four. Now for you to know how to fold this, like you need to get accurate measurement of how to fold the accurate way to fold this. Divide your round hip by four. Whatever it gives you, add five to that. All right, so that's going to work very well. So I went ahead to fold this down and I got exactly what I needed. First thing I'll do is to roll a line at the top part, which will be my starting point. It's going to be my measurement to be taken from that end of the line and marking down. So that is like the apex of my clothes. So from that end, I'm going to take my full length measurement. I want this dress to be 40 inches at the end of the day when I finish doing this. All right, so I want this to be 40 inches. I went ahead to mark my 40 inches. So because I'll be hemming this at the down, the hem, the down part of this, I added 1 inch to that. So that's 41 inches in length. So the first line I'm rolling now is where my length will stop, and the second one is the hemming allowance for this. We're going to fold the down part of this, right? So I just went ahead to do that. So the next thing I went ahead to do is to measure my neck. I'm working with a neck width of 3 inches and a neck depth of 3 inches. All right. So if you didn't know this from the beginning, we are marking for the front and back. So we're marking from the close end because we'll not be adding a zipper to this. So we're marking from the part where we have no cuts whatsoever. All right. So I just connected that with a seam. So the next thing I went ahead to mark is my shoulder. For that, I marked 8 inches. Actually, my shoulder is 15 divided by 2. I have 7.5, but I added ½ inch to that so that I will use the other half to my measure. And from there, I came down by 1 inch for my shoulder slant, and I'm connecting that into the neckline. So from that end of my shoulder slant, I'll mark my armhole, which is 7 inches. All right. To get this, just divide your round bust by 6 and add 1.5 and you'll get what you want. So I went ahead to connect the straight line from the top down, and I'm going to rule a horizontal line, okay, this way, and that will serve as my chest point. So I went ahead to get the midpoint of my armhole line, okay, which is 3.5, and then I used the cuff part of my master pattern ruler to get my armhole curve, okay. So after doing that, I want to start putting in my other measurements, okay, like my waist point, which is 16 inches. That's my half length. From there, I went down by 8 inches to mark my hip points. All right, so I'm just confirming that the lines are accurate, and I'm going to roll out these lines. Okay, I always say roll out your lines so you it will be easy for you while you're working on this, so you're not confused. So go ahead and do that for yours too. So I'm just putting in the circumference measurement on the chest line. I put in my round bust divided by 4. I mark that down. That's 8.5. I did the same thing for the waist, okay, which is 30 divided by 4, 7.5. I went ahead to mark that down. at the hip line, I'm going to do the same thing, 40 divided by 4. All right. So after doing that, I'll go ahead to add. Now the cloth has an A shape, so we'll be adding different allowances to this. At the top part, I added 2 inches. That's for the chest line. That's why I added 2 inches. For the waist line, I added 4 inches, and then for the hip line, I also added 4 inches. All right. So we have 2, 4, and 4. So don't forget that. Okay, while doing yours, ensure you do that. Okay. So to get the down part, I'm going to measure out what I have for my hip and then add 1 inch to that. All right. So I have for my hip, I have 14 inches. So I added 1 inch to 14 inches. I have 15 inches. So I went ahead to mark 15 inches for the full length. All right. You can I've marked that out. So what I simply did was to add 2 inches at the chest point, and then added 4 inches at the waist point, added 4 inches again at the hip point, and then measure out the what I have, like measure out, took the measurement for what I have at the hip area. Okay, remember my hip is 40 divided by 4, I have 10 plus 4. Okay, that I added for the allowance, that is 14. So to get the down part, I added 1 inch to 14, so I marked 15. All right, I hope you got that. I'm just going to connect this out. Okay, you can see the shape. All right, is an A shape, so that's why it looks this way. It's not meant to be tight on the body, or so it's meant to be free. That's why it's like this. All right, so at the down part, the edge, we have that part is going to be curved, so I'll come up by 1 inch. All right, I'll come up by 1 inch at that part, and then make it just a little slant from that part into the hemline of this dress. Okay, so I just went ahead to curve this a little at the end. So that's all we need. I'm just going to cut this out as quickly as possible. So I hope you understand what I was saying actually. Okay, it's just adding, since it's an A-cut dress, the allowances we're adding will not be the same, so we can get the A shape, like the A line shape, by the time we finish making this. Okay, so I hope you got that correct. Right, so I'm gonna head to cut this out. So this is the dress. Like I said, cut the back and front together. We have this looking like this. So remember, it's a one shoulder dress, so one part of this the clothes will be cut out. All right, so I'm just arranging this properly so I have it. So the next thing I went ahead to do is to mark the midpoint, that's of my dress, the middle of this dress. I went ahead to make a line there. It's going to serve as it's going to help me as I'm marking this out. So I did that. So from the other end, you can use whichever part you want to be the off shoulder. All right, whatever part you want your off shoulder to be. So I came down by 5 inches, but if you want yours to be more, like you want the off shoulder to be more open, you can use 6 inches. So I'm using my curve rule to connect this now into the neckline. That's the midpoint of the neckline I marked earlier. All right, so I'm just going to make my connection with a curve rule. So as I was saying, if you want yours to be more, you can just increase the length. Instead of 5, use 6 inches. So I went ahead to cut this out. We'll not be using this other part. So you can see we have our one shoulder. Okay, this is also called an asymmetric neckline. So that's what we're working on, a one shoulder neckline or an asymmetric neckline. So I have my bias tape. I'm going to pipe that part of the sleeve and then stitch down the shoulder. All right, so I've gone ahead to do that. This is what it looks like. All right, our dress is coming together gradually. All right, you can see this is how it looks like. So I'll just keep this aside for now and then work on the sleeve for this dress. So I would advise at this point, if you're working on this, you're doing this, please endeavor to use at least 2.5 yards. All right, you can see at this point I even had to join because my fabric wasn't the what I had left was not giving me exactly what I wanted for my sleeve, so I had to cut and join it. All right, so I'm saying if you don't want to join yours like mine, or if you feel you can manage your fabric, and go ahead to do that. All right, but I'll advise you use 2.5 yards or more, depending on the length you want or how your body size. Okay, so the first thing I'll do is to mark out a certain line for my sleeve where I'm going to take my measurements from. So I've gone ahead to mark this out. So from that point, I'm going to mark out the length of my sleeve. Now I want the sleeve to be 24 inches, but I added 2 inches allowance extra, so I marked out 24. Sorry, I marked out 26. Okay, the allowance is going to help at the top and even at the edge when I'm going to hem this down, right? So I'll just use my rule to connect this down. Okay, so I want the width of my sleeve to be 15 inches. I went ahead to mark this out. Okay, the sleeve has a kind of opening. From the thumbnail, you can see that it has a kind of opening. So we're connecting our 15 inches to the other end, like to the full length of the sleeve. So I went ahead to mark 15 inches also at the end, and I'm going to connect this with a straight line. This is simply going to be a guide for whatever we are working on. Okay, I always advise to draw lines while you're making anything, so it helps you, it becomes a guideline for what you're doing. Okay, so this is the line. I'm just connecting this and ensuring that it's showing properly so you can see. So I'm going to have to do that. All right, you can see that's the connection of the line. So we have 15 inches for the width of our sleeve. The next thing I'm going to do is measure my sleeve cap. So from the beginning of the sleeve, the starting line of the sleeve, I'm going to come down by 4 inches for my sleeve cap. So I'm just going to rule this line out so that we can continue doing this. So I've ruled it out. The next thing I'm going to do is to put half of my round armhole measurement, which is 8. Okay, my round armhole is 16 divided by 2. I have 8. So I go ahead and do that for yours, and then I'll connect it to the starting point of the sleeve. I just used straight line and connected it to that point. So the next thing I did was to get the midpoint of the line I just drew, the line from my armhole point to the top of the sleeve. After getting that, I'm going to go up by 1/4 of an inch to get my armhole curve, to get my sleeve curve, and then go down, okay, from that midpoint by 1/4 of an inch. All right, so I've gotten that. You can see the next thing I want to do is to add allowances to the side of my sleeve. So I went ahead to add 2 inches for that. All right, so from that end where my 2-inch allowance is, I'll make a line down to the point of 15 inches. All right, the 15 inches at the full length. Remember I said earlier it's going to serve as a guideline for when we are marking this out. All right, so the down part of the sleeve is open, so it needs to be free. So from the 2 inches allowance we got, we are going to make that connection down to that end. So I'm simply just going to connect it down to that end. All right, went ahead to I was doing this on the floor, so my fabric was kind of moving. All right, ensure you pin yours down. So I had to rule my lines. I'm always going over my lines to make sure that visible. So from that point, that is the closed end of my sleeve, I went down by 18 inches. All right, the sleeve has a certain kind of curve, so I'm going to connect it to the other end. That's the full length of the sleeve. All right, so I'm connecting it to this other end. I'm using my curve rule to do this. All right, you're going to see how this looks like at the end of the day. It actually came out nice, and I hope you'll be trying out this the sleeve design while you're working on this dress. Okay, it's actually not bad. Okay, it looks nice at the end of the day, and it's actually not hard to do. So we finished everything we're doing. We're just going to cut this out. Okay, you can see I didn't cut out the other part of this. This is what we're going to have as our sleeve at the end of the day. So I'm just going to cut this out right now. So this is what we have. You can see the lines there. So I'll go ahead to use my bias tape to pipe the sleeve end. All right, I'll pipe the sleeve end of this. So I've done that. This is what it looks like. It looks nice, right? I know it looks nice. So this is what we have after that. All right, so the next thing I want to do is to attach my sleeve to the dress. So to do this, I brought back my cloth. I'm going to get the midpoint of my sleeve right now, folded this into 2, and then made a notch at the midpoint of the sleeve so that I can attach this to the part that needs a sleeve. All right, so I'm going to attach that point, the notch I made, to the shoulder area, that's the one with the shoulder. Remember, one part of this has no shoulder, so we're going to attach that down and then go over to the machine and make stitches down there. We're going to make stitches. I'm gonna head to stitch it down. You can see this is what it looks like. Our sleeve is coming in together, just coming in properly. So the next thing I want to do is to put pockets for this dress. You can decide not to put yours, but I want to put pocket for this dress. So I'm just simply arranging this clothes properly so they are straightened at all the angles. I want everywhere to be matching. Okay, so I'm putting the pocket inside. So I went ahead to fold this into two. All right, so I have like four. I have two sides for my left and two sides for my right. All right, I've not joined this together, so I have two sides on both ends. So I went ahead to fold this in so I can get this. So what I'm going to do next is from the shoulder, I'm going to take the measurement for where I want my pocket to start. Now, my shoulder to waist is 16 inches. So I'll come down by 2 inches for where I want this to start. All right. So it's going to be more easier and better for me. All right. So go ahead and do that for yours. Came down by 2 inches. So from that mark where I made, I'm going to come down by 5 inches. This is going to be like the part my hand is going to pass to dip into the pocket. So I've gone ahead to do that. I'll just make notches at this end. Now remember I said we have two parts for the left part, two parts for the right. So I'm making notches for all the ends of this. Okay, the notch is going to affect all ends so that while stitching this down, I will not have the right side of my pocket at the top or the left side of my pocket under. So they have to be corresponding by the time I finish fixing this. So this is actually the best way to do this. Ensure you join them all together and then make notches. So I've gone ahead to do that. I'll just open this up so you see how it looks like. Okay, I hope you can see the notches I made on this. All right, so I'll just keep this outside. All right, and then work on the pocket, the main pocket itself. I've gone ahead to cut out this triangle shape. Okay, it measures about 5.5 inches in width and then 11.5 inches in depth. All right, so I'm going to attach this to my dress. Okay, to the notch part I made. I'm just going to place this front facing front. So ensure you place this front facing front, especially if you're working with a fabric like mine that you can tell the front from the back. So place this front facing front. All right, so like I said, we have 4 parts of this cloth, so we have 4 pieces of pockets. All right, so we have 2 for the left side for the pocket, and then we have 2 for the right side for our pockets. All right, just as we have 2 sides for the right, 2 sides for the left. Okay, so ensure you cut this out to know the depth you want your pocket to be. You don't want the pocket to be coming out from your clothes, like from underneath your clothes. If your gown is short, then the length of your pocket shouldn't be too long. All right, but if you want your pocket to be longer, very long, that means the length of your gown has to be increased. You need this to be comfortable for you while you're wearing it, so it's not look awkward while you're wearing this. All right, so I'm just going to pin all 4 pieces of this down. Okay, I'm pinning this down front facing front. Okay, don't forget that front facing front. I will just pin this down, okay, on the ends, and then I'll go over to the machine and make stitches. That's simply attaching them to the material itself. All right, so I've gone ahead to do that. All right, this is what it looks like. I've gone ahead to do that. Okay, so I've just flipped this to the back so we can start joining the back part of this. I'm going to be explaining to you how to join this. Now remember, we have a pocket. Without our pocket, we can just join this straight down, but then we have our pocket, so we need to follow the pattern of doing this. If not, us attaching a pocket would just simply be a waste. Okay, so I want to join this together with 1 inch of allowance. Okay, so I went ahead to mark that out. So I'm doing that 1 inch down. So when I get to where I made the notch where the pocket is connecting to the clothes, the first part, I'm going to start going into the pocket area. All right, so just watch what I'm marking out right now. So I'm going to go into the pocket area. All right, so you can see that's the beginning part. I made the mark, my 1 inch mark. Okay, and then when I got to the first edge of the pocket, I went inside. All right, Okay, so at that edge there, if you want the edge of a pocket to be straight, you can just sew it that. So I just made a very little curve. It wasn't so noticeable though, so I just made a very little curve. You can see that I just made a curve that at that end, because I didn't want that the depth of my pocket to be straight. All right, so I just made that. So I'm going to continue doing that. That's how I'm going to make my stitches when I go over to the machine. That's just what I'm trying to explain to us. All right, so I hope you understand all the grammar and all the whatever I'm saying. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to repeat the same process for the other part that has a sleeve. So I'll start from my sleeve using my 1-inch allowance. I'm going to join it down, get to the pocket area, and then when I get to the pocket area, I'll go in, sew in. All right, I'll sew in, make my curve at the pocket area, and then sew down straight. That's what I'm going to do. All right, so I won't close down. Okay, you can see I've already done this. See, I'm showing you this is the back part of this after joining this together. This is what it looks like. All right, so I'll just go ahead to trim out the excess I have at the edge of my pocket. All right, just going to trim out the parts because they'll not be useful. Remember, I've already made like a curved stitch, so I'll not be using the extra parts of this. The extra parts of those pieces they're actually waste, so they're no longer useful to me. Okay, so this is what it looks like. Right, so I'll just flip this over to the right side so you can see how it looks like. Okay, you can see this is what it looks like after I stitched it down. I'm just trying to arrange this properly so that you'll see how nice it looks. Okay, so this is what it looks like. All right, so you can see the pocket hole there. So I also went ahead to hem the down part of this clothes. All right, so I've hemmed the down part. So the next thing I want to do is to attach the belt to the neck part. Okay, it's more like a collar. So to get this accurately, I'll just measure around my neckline. I'm just going to measure around my neckline to get the desired length I need for this. Okay, remember from the thumbnail you'll notice that it has extra. So after measuring this out, I had about 31 inches. Okay, but I decided to use 60 altogether so that I'll have excess I will use to mark. Okay, so I went ahead to cut out this piece. It measures 10 inches in width, sorry, and then 60 inches in length. Okay, so that means I added 29 inches to the 31 I had already, so I can get 60 inches. All right, so this is what I have, and this is what it looks like at the end of the day. So I went ahead to fold this into 2 so that I can get the midpoint of this. All right, so I went ahead to fold this into 2. So go ahead and do that for yours. Okay, the black fabric I'm using is actually a crepe fabric, but it has a shiny surface and a dim back. It just looks like the poly fabric I'm using. So what I did there, I just made notches at the midpoint. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is to fold this horizontally. All right, midpoint to midpoint, so they'll be meeting. I'll go ahead and pin this down so it's not be moving while I'm working on this piece. All right, so I'm just trying to show us how to get the perfect shape, the perfect shaping for our belt. Okay, that's what I'm just trying to do. Okay, so I want to pin this down so it's not moving about while I'm working on this. All right, I'm just arranging this properly so I have everything in place. So we're going to work on one part of this, the belt first, before working on the other part. Okay, we're going to use the first part to replicate on the other part. All right, so at the midpoint where I made my notch, I'm going to go up from the down, that's the close end. I'm going to go up from that end by 2 inches. Okay, so I'll go up by 2 inches, and from that end I'm going to measure 19 inches the other way. All right, so I measured 19 inches that end. So what I'm going to do is to connect both lines together. Remember, the first one is 2 inches upwards and the second is 19 inches in length. So I'll simply just connect this together. So I just went ahead to mark the 2 inches at the other end so that I won't have any issues. All right, so I'm using my ruler to just make my connection. Remember I said we'll be using one part to cut out the other part. We'll just use this part as a template to get to the other part. So we'll have our belt coming out nice. Okay, so from the end of that, I'll make a straight rule from that end to the top end of this other part of the belt. Okay, just watch what I'm doing closely so you see this. All right, so I've gone ahead to do that. All right, I've done that. All right, so this is what we have. I'm just going ahead to make extra marks on this so it's more visible. So from the end where the line ends at this point, I'll come in by 4 inches. This is so that we can get a sort of a triangular shape for our belt. All right, so from the 4 inches line I made, I'll connect it to the down part of this belt. Okay, you can see what I'm doing right now. I just connected that to that. All right, so this is what we're going to have at the end of the day. So I'll just go ahead to cut it out so you see how this looks like. Okay, you can see the shape already. That's the shape for the mouth of our belt. That's why it's needed. That's why we're doing all the markings left, right, and center. So I'll fold this over from that point to this other point and then use it to make a replicate or a duplicate for this other end. I'm just going to pin this down, ensure everything is in place before I start cutting it out. All right, so I've gone ahead to do that. I'm just going to unpin this so you can see this is what we have. Okay, so we want to attach this to the neckline of our dress. So to attach this to this, we're going to fold this back into two so we can get our midpoint. All right, so I went ahead to fold this into two, ensure that they are both at the same end. You don't want one to be longer than the other. So I went ahead to fold this into two and then made a notch at the midpoint of this. So I'll go ahead and attach this to, I'll pin this down to the neckline of my dress. Okay, so I'm going to be pinning down one part. Okay, I'm actually placing this front facing front. Remember I said the black part of my fabric has a shiny part also. So I'm placing this front facing front, and I'm going to pin this round the neckline of the dress. Okay, so if you're a returning subscriber, thank you for always coming back to watch my videos. I appreciate the love. Okay, and if you're seeing this channel for the first time, please subscribe. Okay, and turn on the notification bell so you'll be notified whenever I post a new video, and don't forget to like. All right, I always appreciate it when you drop your comments. Okay, you can make comments. Okay, and make your critiques wherever you think I'm not doing it right. All right, so thank you. We're going to go back to this. I'm just basically pinning this round the neckline. All right, I'm pinning this round the neckline. Now I'm pinning this from the part that has the shoulder, the part that has the sleeve to the other part. Okay, so that's just what I did. I just pinned it from that end to this other end. Okay, so you can see I've gone ahead to stitch it down. This is what we have after I stitched it down. Okay, this is more like attaching a belt to a skirt or something, but we're attaching this from front to the inside. So that's what I'm doing. So I'll go ahead to fold this up for the final part of this. So I'll just fold this up. Okay, you need to have your pins available while you're working on this. All right, you need to get this accurately and you need to be patient. Okay, it takes a lot of time, but you need to be patient so that at the end of the day you get this right. Okay, so ensure you're patient. Don't get frustrated while doing this. Okay, it can get frustrating, but I don't want you to get frustrated. Just be patient and then you achieve this at the end of the day. So I'll just go ahead to fold this in. That's just what I'm doing. I'm just folding in the rough edges together, placing them at equal ends and then pinning them down so that while I'm stitching this up, it's not going to give any issues. All right. So I'm going to pin a part of this down so that I can give you a physical representation of what it will look like. All right, so I'm just going to pin this down. I'm not going to do the same. I'm not going to do this for every part of this. I'm just going to do this for a little part of this to show you what it will look like. All right, so I'm just basically folding the edges of both ends of this belt. I'm folding them inside and then pinning it down. You want to ensure that they're both on at the same ends. You don't want one to be longer than the other. Okay, so you don't have openings while you're stitching it down. Okay, just don't forget that. Okay, you want them to be at the same area. You know, you're stitching this down together, so they need to be at matching ends. All right, so I just went ahead to pin this down. Okay, pinning this down. Okay, I've gotten to the main fabric area, so I'm going to do the same thing. You can see I was actually adjusting this while I was going, okay, so that you have them matching, you have them meeting. You don't want the belt to be folding at one end or for it to have sort of ruffles. So you have to pin this down. And while pinning this down around the neck area, please ensure you're using it to cover the threads, the first stitches you made, so you don't have any rough parts showing. All right, so ensure you do that. So you can see this is it. This is what it looks like. Okay. So I've gone ahead to pin down that part. All right. You can see this is how it looks like after I pinned it down. So what I'll go ahead to do is to make stitches on top of it. All right. And then also fold this other end of the belt. So I've gone ahead to do that. You can see what our cloth looks like. It looks nice, right? Okay. The other belt just goes around your arm while you're wearing this. Okay. So this is what it looks like at the end of the day. You can see how this really turned out. It turned out nice. It looks good on me. Okay, I hope you're going to try this out. Okay, you can try this out with whatever fabric you have. Thank you for watching and see you next time. Bye.